Good afternoon, whatever part of the world you're from. Just remind everyone that as we've just started recording this webinar, Happy New Year. And you're all very welcome to the Buildings Action at BAC Learning webinar. And as you know, we hold our webinars on the second Wednesday of each month. So this is our first one for 2024. And we're very pleased to run this session with the Centre for Energy Efficiency and Effect in Bulgaria. And the presentation is called Paving the Way for Institutionalizing Energy Efficiency in Central and Eastern Europe. And Dragomir Tasnev the Executive Director of the Centre for Energy Efficiency and Effect, will actually do the presentation. He has many roles, and they include coordinator of the successfully completed Build Up Skills, Bulgaria Build Up Skills, NRPro, Train to NZEB and Fit to NZEB projects, team leader for NEFFECT in more than 20 international cooperation projects, and so on. And he's also a published author of the series of publications and a lecturer on numerous international conferences in the field of sustainable energy development, education and training on energy efficiency, and RES in building principles of passive and nearly zero energy buildings, and municipal energy planning. So, as we do with all our webinars, we will have a presentation from Dragomir, which will be approximately 20 minutes. Is it, Dragomir, we think?
Yep, that's what it's planned for.
Yeah, and then that will be followed by a Q&A, which will be moderated by Scott Foster, our own Scott Foster. Scott has some questions lined up to ask, but we will always give the floor to people that are on the call to ask their questions. So raise your hand or put it in the chat if you have a question, and we will get to you to make sure that everyone gets the opportunity. So without further ado, I'll hand it over the microphone to Dragomir, and I'll go on mute. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Barbara, and Happy New Year from my side as well. Let it really bring peace and health to everyone, and then we have some challenges to fight and to cope with, but I trust with such initiatives that you have started, we are in a better position to do that. So thanks again for the invitation, and I'm really honored to be here with you, and I'm really happy that there are people that are kind of interested with the developments in Central and Eastern Europe. Probably a part of Europe, part of the world that is some kind underestimated, but that has a specific challenges in front of it, and that offers certain solutions that might be out of the box and might be useful in other situations as well. And basically, that's the aim of my story today. And I hope that I will guide you through a process that might give you some insight for your future activities, and hopefully for the activities that we can do together within the networks that we are all establishing one way or another. So I will share some slides that I have prepared for you. Hope you can see them now in presentation mode. We will be telling a story, or I will be telling a story, and I will be inviting your question about a process that takes more than a few years. Actually, our organization started working back in 1992, immediately after the changes, after the change of the communist regime and the break up of the chains of the former Soviet Union circle of influence, and that wasn't a time where energy was an issue at all. Actually, that were times where energy was coming practically free from the Soviet Union, and the society wasn't concerned by those issues. And it was indeed initiative of USAID, the United States Development Program, to establish 6 centers of excellence, we can say so, or 6 non-government organizations in different parts of the world, part of the former communist regime, that would bring up the topic, because it was quite obvious that one way or another, sooner or later, the topic of energy efficiency would come here to haunt us because of the excessive use of energy that our economies were associated with, and 6 such centers were established. Interesting places, I would say: China, Soviet Union, Russia, so in 1992. Then it was Poland, Ukraine, the Czech Republic, and Bulgaria, and only 2 of these survived, ours and the Czech one, with which we still cooperate. The others had different fortunes. Some were adopted by the national government, some just disappeared, some lost their meaning with the political changes, but ours persisted. And there are some lessons from that 30 years history of persistence, I would say so, because the changes that we endured required really quite a lot of flexibility. And this is what I would like to present to you now. Basically, this is the structure of our organization. The main body is a foundation that supports policy making at national and local level. Basically, our mission is really policy consultancy, support of the policies, which is extremely important in cases where policies are dominated by populistic argumentation. There should be someone that would present the opposite values and the opposite side of the story. But my colleagues back then very quickly learned that policy consultancy is worth nothing without technical expertise. So that is why the first investment was in technical expertise, and we established our consultancy units, which are still providing energy efficiency services, energy audits of buildings and industrial systems. So it's not only the built environment, but also the industry, some certain cases, transportation as well. Also, we are providing passive house and nearly zero energy building design with our subsidiaries. And at the other step, we actually understood or realized that having that capacity brings us much closer to where energy efficiency policies and housing policy, let's say, in specifics take place. And that's the local level. And again, 25 years ago, our colleagues established the first municipal energy efficiency network. And I would say that was the first such in Europe, at least as to my knowledge. That's a voluntary association of municipalities that accept as their mission to overachieve the national and the European targets. And that's very, very important, because the local example paves the way for further developments and develops the market. Now that's recognized in the European policies, in the European directives, but 25 years ago, that wasn't the case. Actually, that's absolutely the same format as the Covenant of Mayors now takes place. Of course, the Covenant of Mayors is a global initiative now, but it's based on such grassroots initiatives as ours, as the one in Poland, as the one in Romania, which came into existence at that time frame. And then having the municipalities on board, having the technical consultancy, it's one last question that you have to solve, and that's where the money. That's an important issue for everyone. And that led to the establishment of the since 2005. So that's another story with nearly 20 years of experience gained. It came through different challenges, but it's still quoted as one of the best dedicated financing funds in Eastern Europe, especially in situations where the investment landscape is not dominated by incentive grants. And I will tell you one story precisely about that. How do you survive in such a situation? One last thing about the organization I would like to mention is that, besides participating in numerous networks, we do not depend on any public financing. All our financing comes from international sources. So it's again public financing, but not national financing. Only international sources, and mostly research and policy coordination and support programs financed by the European Union, but also from the German government, from different donors working at international level. And that's very important because it gives you the independence to provide policy consultations that might be opposing the national doctrines and the paradigms pushed top down by the central government. And in centralized societies, as in Central and Eastern Europe, that's extremely important. The independence is very, very important, crucial for the implementation of our mission as stated, support of energy efficiency policies for the purpose of providing benefits for the whole community. And that's actually, it might sound very rosy and optimistic having that kind of instrumentarium of toolbox in our hands, but that's the reality that we need to face in Bulgaria. And it's not really the reality that you like to see in your city, in the place that you live, in your community. That's the heritage of the Soviet type of construction. And we have 66,000, nearly 67,000 of these buildings that we need to renovate, because these are the buildings that will be with us probably in 30 years' time. Probably not all, but the majority of them is where people live. And that reality has to be opposed to sometimes. Each of these apartments, mind you, is owned by a separate owner, a natural person, not a housing association, not a legal entity that owns the whole building, but each of the apartment is owned by a separate natural person. So in order to take any renovation measures, they have to agree on them. And with having 100 different owners, some of them living in the United States, in New Zealand, in Germany, everywhere, some of them being energy poor or economically poor, it's very difficult to have an agreement on the renovation in a joint project. And that's a challenge. That's a real challenge that we need to face, to address, and in a sustainable way, because the way the national policies are addressing these challenges are not sustainable. And here's the example. I'm taking the renovation policies as an example, but we can take these examples from different areas of sustainability in general. The renovation, however, is probably the easiest to understand because we all face these problems in our countries, albeit in a different shape. So here what we have, this is a block of flats renovated in our running programs, which, if you can imagine that, because many people cannot imagine that, provide 100% subsidy to individual, private, separate owners. The private owners do not have to pay a single cent for the renovation. And what does that mean? At first glance, it sounds fantastic, but it's not. It's not, because for 14 years and more, we have renovated only 4% of our buildings, and we have renovated them with very dubious quality, as you can see on the picture in the right. So investing a lot of public money doesn't mean that you get significant results if you don't invest this money reasonably, and if you don't attract private investments, if you don't use the leverage factor of the public money. And this is where we are heading now, and this is where we need to go in order to face that huge challenge that we face with our built environment, because we have to do it. Otherwise, we're becoming poorer and poorer compared to other societies, other countries, which practically are in an advanced state. So this is where we came in, and this is where policy consultancy is targeted. A lot of challenges should be solved, and the one of them, or if I can give a recipe for that, is system thinking, because mass renovation comes only if a set of instruments operates uniformly in a coordinated way at the same time, with the same pace, and without compromises. So that's why we need to make a transformation of our policies, to promote a transformation, to ensure a long-term vision agreed at political and at social level, and then to provide the different instruments, the financing, the quality, the on-site technical supports, because people living in these buildings are not technical experts. We need to provide the monitoring of the results. We need to prove the benefits in order to get the communication campaign going. And we need to get people joining together, organizing themselves in communities so that investment decisions are taken in a steady pace. And that's what we try to do now, based on our experience and based on our capacities that we have built through the years. And again, I'm stating that is one side of our efforts, but a side that explains a lot of our approach, which I think is kind of more systematic than what we see at national level policy making, probably not only in Bulgaria, but in other countries in the region as well. So then the question is, what resources do we have as a non-governmental organization to drive that systematic change of the policy setting? And at the end of the day, if we take a closer look, we do not lack the resources. We do not lack the resources, and the resources are coming indeed from the international level. This is just a selection, by the way, of projects that we have financed under programs by the European Union and the German government. And as you can see, we have projects on financing. So we are trying to develop financing schemes together with our energy efficiency funds. We're trying to develop the certification instruments, which are very important for the financial sector, because the financial sector needs to prove the results of the projects it finances. We try to develop the calculation instruments. We try to provide other planning instruments, including digitalization of the construction sector, including the interventions within the prefabricated type of refurbishment of the building. We try to support also planning at national level. And here comes a big part of the equation. Then we're moving to the next part. I told you that the municipal level is extremely important. It's extremely important because the organization of these associations of homeowners comes really at community level. And there's no one closer to people than municipalities. So we try to support them. We're organizing a lot of training and education for them, but also we are providing them with municipal energy management systems, with planning tools, with resources to develop their own investment concepts and to promote their own policies in the area. And with high level also strategic and planning documents, we have developed the energy and climate plan of our capital, Sofia, and many other cities, which channel resources to certain policy actions that support the national level policy making, or even provide a more advanced approach than the national level of governance. And then there are certain issues that need particular attention. One of them is energy poverty. Obviously, Bulgaria is, according to the statistics, the most energy poor country in Europe. So then we need some tools to support that. We need a definition. We need a methodology to apply the definition. We need specific financing instruments that would prioritize the support to energy poor parts of the population, which has to be part of the process. And actually, if you put the right tools for the energy poor, they're becoming the engine of the process, because they see the benefit the energy efficiency has on their own life, well-being, on their own health and economic status and spending power. So, here you can turn a challenge into an opportunity. So another very, very important topic. Energy communities, another part of the action, combining energy efficiency with community energy. It's a very topical, but also very important, very fruitful action to take. And we have also our first results. Just started our first energy cooperative in one of our leading cities, and I'm personally very happy about that. And then the key to it all. Actually, that was the topic that I was invited to speak about during this workshop, and that's something that we do think is the crucial one. Knowledge, investment in knowledge, because without knowledge at all levels, decision-making, but also professional level, but also community level and end user level, and of course governance level, it's not possible to expect any sustainable results. So that's why we are arguing always that in each policy action, in each support program, there should be a component dedicated to development of knowledge. And this is what we try to support from our sides with the resources that we have. A number of projects were indeed initiated by us. We were one of the initiators of the European Builders Youth Initiative. That's now more than 10 years ago. Started in 2011. In every European country, there were such projects. I started there, and I'm still continuing to be there every year, every time this group of people meets. Then we moved to one of our key projects. It was called Train to NZEP, and we established building knowledge hubs. We call them centers of excellence, which provide training and education services in the different countries. We got not only in Bulgaria, but also in Romania, Czech Republic, Turkey, and Ukraine. And it was a huge success in these markets that are kind of unknown to us, Turkey and Ukraine, but the enthusiasm, especially in Ukraine back then in 2015, was astonishing. They were getting thousands of people at their events and a lot of interest to their training. They're still functioning. Every one of them, besides Turkey, is still functioning. Then we moved to the renovation issue because, as I mentioned, renovation is a big part of the story, and we developed that training center. Actually, we got huge support from Ireland. I always would quote the help that was provided by Mozart, Passive House Academy. They had that brand there. Thomas O'Leary, whom you all know, and how was Art McCormack? Sorry, I missed the name for a moment, but both of them, especially Art McCormack, were excellent lecturers. They trained trainers in Bulgaria. And the other countries that were involved, we added Italy, Greece, and Croatia to the network there. And we changed actually all the educational programs at all levels, from university to professional high schools and vocational training centers in each of the country, which was indeed, at least I consider it as a big success at the time, 2018, 2019. And then we moved to the other aspects of skills development, and that's, surprisingly or not, is the market development, because we understood, it's not that difficult to understand that actually, that without informed markets, without demand for quality buildings, passive buildings, nearly zero energy buildings, there's no demand for skilled work, and there's no demand for training and education, and no investment in knowledge at the end. So we decided that we need to reorganize and incentivize the markets. And we started with the concept which we call the NZEP roadshows. We moved places. We really brought the concept of the passive house of the NZEP to the smaller and the bigger cities in a way that the people would understand it and see that it's not, nuclear science. It's something from this world. And that was a huge success. It didn't start easy. Of course, we started at COVID. It was difficult to approach people. We had smiles when we got a few at city centers. We got smiles when we had a few in training courses, but then it started to build itself. So we attracted the producers, the distributors of passive house components. Then we moved to universities. We tried with some innovative approaches like extended reality and so on. We moved to commercial centers. We talked to children, we talked to parents, we talked to everybody that would pass by and, take a look at our exhibitions. We did actually the first passive house caravan. I think it's not the first done in Europe, but in Bulgaria, for sure, it was the first one. And we attracted a lot of attention. So then we started to get even bigger presence at political events, first of all, because policymakers like to be associated with good design and with innovative products. We use that to start new policy initiatives and new cooperations with branch associations, with commercial associations, and so on. And we attracted the media. And we got into the media, into the mainstream media, all national televisions, all the radio stations. We got good media exposition. As a final outcome of the story, yes, we moved also to Brussels. We had the chance to present to the European commissioners. That's the European Commissioner for Energy, Kadri Simpson. And what did we present to the European Commissioner? Exactly the same that we presented to children. in commercial centers, in shopping malls. That's kind of very natural, very hands-on approach to energy efficiency with games, with demonstration, real-time demonstrations, with experiments, that has the same communication power with the European Commissioner and with the children. And that's the way to continue to communicate, at least in our appreciation, to the broader audiences, to the end users regarding energy efficiency. And we're coming to where we are now. Again, we are at the point of policy consultations after having that story of a strong push in the past year promoting energy efficiency. We need to do it even stronger. We need to ensure coherent actions with other international actors and advocacy groups, which I'm doing now and which I would continue to do at every opportunity that is possible, because the international pressure on the national policies is one of the tools that has the biggest impact in our experience. Of course, it has to be combined with internal media pressure, because the pressure from Brussels in Bulgaria already is met with interest from the national media, and it goes back from two directions to the central policymakers, which feel obliged to do something and to do it better. Then we need to work with the local actors, with the municipalities, because they're carrying the policies and they also have pressure tools to the central government. And then we need to provide the examples so that the policymakers would associate themselves with them. And if we do that, and if we do it relentlessly without any compromise, we are on the right way. And we already see the developments. We see the movement, we see the increased transparency and the increased requirements to energy efficiency in buildings. But in order to be able to provide quality, we need to invest in training and education. And that's the main thing that I would like. I repeated already 3 or 4 times, but I would like to complete my presentation with it. We are now working on a continuous professional development system in Bulgaria, and we do need support for that, but I trust that we will get it going in 2024, this year. So that would give us one tool in order to get recognition of the knowledge to get to high quality, nearly zero and zero emission buildings at the end of the day. And if that makes any sense to you, I would be really happy to cooperate, to work on these issues together, to exchange knowledge, to exchange experience, because I trust that the more we develop the knowledge within our professional communities and within our societies in general, the better positioned we'll be to face the overall societal challenges that we face in terms of, adaptations to the climate change, reversing climate change effects, and that's the biggest issue that we face altogether. So thank you for your attention. Of course, I'm open for any questions, and I do hope that this made sense for you. And I see that in the chat there are certain comments already. So yeah, please feel welcome to push any question that might come to your mind here at me. And of course, I would.
Thank you very much, Dragomir, and that's a very impressive presentation and very impressive accomplishment. So congratulations on what you've been able to achieve. I do have some questions that I've listed, but since Amy has put some great ones already into the chat, let's go with hers. And she would like you to do a bit of a drill down. You mentioned it already with the commissioner from the EU, but drilling down on the gamification topic with some specific examples. And then she goes on to say, could you really push on the extended reality, the concept and the extent of availability of these approaches? Can you speak to her comments?
Absolutely. That's obviously one of my favorite topics, because that has brought a lot of attention, and we do believe it has an impact. By the way, many of you know Stefan Palantzas from HPHI Greece. He's a part of the community because I saw his name within the invited people. He and his organization and his son Dimitris Palantzas actually were one of the initiators of that approach. But it came together as a consequence of our experience that we need much simpler and illustrative, how should I say, straightforward way to explain the principles of energy efficiency to people that are not necessarily building professionals or technical experts, engineers of any kind. And this is where it started from. We had two complementary concepts. One was with the mobile unit, NZEP Caravan, which you can move places that we can show to people. They can experience it real time, and it's attractive and it's good enough for children to climb in and to play around and to get some kind of real life experience. But actually the gamification stuff was, I would say, even more successful. It started with a book, with a comic book, where there was a story where one dog started to help a couple of friends from at school age to refurbish their building so that the negative aspects of poor efficiency are overcome and the building of these two friends becomes a healthier and more comfortable place to live, and their parents can save some money and start living in a better way. So that book, it's called the NZEBO, the dog that saves the world, is available in English, and everybody who is interested can take it, translate it in their national languages, and use it in their own activities. And then we started with what we called the NZEP workshop, based on gamification tools. It means that we are organizing typically 6 stands. It may differ, but we have the concept, and each of the stands is dedicated to one of the key passive house principles. So we're starting with insulation, then moving to windows, to air tightness, then we're moving to mechanical ventilation. And at the end of the day, there is a game with questions, and children who go through all principles take the experiments that you can do with the toys that we have developed especially for the purpose, receive as a reward the comic book. And believe it or not, in Greece, only 4,000 of school children have passed through that exercise and received the comic book, because we know it because of the number of printed comic books there. 4,000 in schools. I think that's for a project with financing of, let's say, 50 or 100,000 euro. Only that, without having anything else, is worth it. And that also comes into the other, in the other countries. It happens also in the other countries in different scales, but it doesn't matter. It's the important thing is that you have the two box that you can place in every school, that you can place in every construction fair, every exhibition that you can find around. And the other thing is that all the designs of these toys are publicly available, so everybody can do them themselves. And actually, we were invited in last June in Brussels during the European Sustainable Energy Week to make an exhibition that you saw that was visited by Kadri Simpson. The one thing is not that Kadri Simpson visited it. It was, good 10 minutes that we had with her, more than anybody else, by the way. Yeah, but it was good that at the end of the story, she told us you have to do that in the European Parliament and to teach, the deputies on this principle, and that it can be done by a child. But the most important thing is that there were people from museums, from schools, from all kinds of organizations around Europe, from the Netherlands, from Belgium, who came in and asked for the drawings, for the details, so that they can do it themselves. So that was, yes, the replication impact that we are delivering, and that we hope that we will continue to deliver, because you see that the reputation of the construction industry is going down in Europe. It's not attractive. It's young people do not feel that they have their professional and personal realization in the sector, and that's a huge issue. Now we are doing surveys regarding the demand for skilled work in the construction sector. under this Build of Skills initiative. It's a huge issue everywhere around Europe, a huge issue indeed. So in Bulgaria, we are lacking about 50 to 60,000 people working in the construction industry out of a total of 250,000. So 1/5 of the workforce is needed. It's not here, it's gone. It's has emigrated, it has moved to other sectors, to tourism, to, I don't know, agriculture, but it's not there. And the ones that stay are not skilled enough. So it's a huge challenge, and you need to provide some kind of incentives, psychological incentive for them to consider the sector as an attractive. One thing is to get it into a friendly conversation. The other thing is to relate it to other social trends that are important, and these are digitalization, obviously, and then environmental lifestyles. Again, something that is valued by the youths, by the communities that are shaping the social perceptions now. And I'm getting into the question regarding the VR experience, because that's the one thing that's connected with the changing of the perception towards the construction industry. And connecting it to the digitalization. Because yes, we all have the policies, the reforms, but they're taking a lot of time. But we need action. Now we need to get the digital stuff into the schools, into the universities, to convince the pupils, the students that are there one way or another, that this is their way forward. And this is why we are trying, first of all, we are trying to use the solutions that are provided by the suppliers. They're now the front runners in developing training materials and demonstration in extended reality. But our next project and our next steps include development of a whole set of training materials using VR. Again, they are based on the passive house principles, obviously. The point is that you make BIM, building information modeling. So digital environment with a certain building, we decided that it would be a school building, and you had different slices of the buildings, different components of the buildings that you use to bring the user of that training materials and to explain and demonstrate and let them work with their virtual hands on the mounting of certain building components or the operation of a certain system, so that they have that real-time experience and they forever relate the construction industry with the digital development. And I think that would be something worth worth noting by the next EU commissioner. I hope it would be the case as well.
Thank you for that. That's quite complete. Amy did ask if it'd be possible to put a link to the book into the chat. I don't know if you've got a link easily available to share with folks.
It's easily available. The European projects that we are working had something have a quite useful feature. All we call them deliverables are publicly available. So all the outputs that we do are publicly available. And I will just, it would take me, I guess, 30 seconds to reach the website and give you the link to all the documents that we have produced within this ENSE ProCho project. This includes the design drawings and specifications, explanations on how to design these gamification tools.
There's the link is in the chat for everybody.
In the chat, yes.
And there's also been a number of comments of enthusiasm for both how universal the challenges are that you face and some of the others who are doing similar work in this area. I will say In Cho has had to leave, but she's going to be giving a webinar next month, and I'll not steal any of Barbara Ann's thunder, but I think you'd like to be on that one as well, because it's about getting the culture shift at very young ages. And I think there's a nice marriage between what you've been talking about and some of the things that In is also working on. So I think this community's got a very robust area of exchange, and that's really good to see. Also, the idea of a collaboration on some of these virtual reality trainings, I think is something we could pursue. And Best apparently is doing Best in Scotland, in Glasgow, has been doing quite a bit of work in that area. I think that's something we might want to generalize as well. Um, I, I did want to ask you, you've been doing a lot of work and it's really impressive. And again, I congratulate you. Are you able to see a difference in result when you're walking around Sofia? Are you seeing a change in the outcomes of the buildings, of how they're built? And the example I'll give is that you'll send an apprentice off to go to training and they get wonderfully trained. And then they come back and the foreman on the job says, no, you have to do it the way I told you to do it, which means that the training doesn't actually hit the road. Are you seeing an impact with the work that you've been doing?
I'm seeing an impact, but I wouldn't be honest if I tell you I'm happy with the level of impact. So you can see the impact. It's, of course, not a result of our work only. It's a result of the overall development. It's a result of people coming from other parts of Europe, coming back to Bulgaria. That was very, very evident during COVID. When people working in Germany or in Great Britain, because Bulgaria, I don't know if you're aware of that, but we lost a quarter of our population through migration in the past 20 or so years. That's huge. Some people came back during COVID and they came back with their perceptions, their understanding of how a building should look like and what functionalities it should offer. So the market was also driven by that kind of dynamics. Also, the regulations change under the pressure of the European Union, even if we are a little bit lagging behind. But you know, when you're in the heart of the developments, it always seems that it's a bit slow.
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, you see the difference because now new establishments, new buildings in Sofia have a different outlook. And some of them are coming now with mechanical ventilation, with heat recovery, which was not the case 5 or 10 years ago. Some are coming, or no, now every building is coming with triple glazing, with 20 centimeters of insulation. We are starting to appreciate the concept of air tightness. So, sorry, I must say that there is a difference, but it's not streamlined, and still certifications that guarantee quality are not a universal tool. And that's the thing we need to push from our side, because without proving the quality and each and every project, the market develops slowly. One unhappy customer has the impact of 10 happy customers on the market, and we have to avoid it. We need to find the instruments to avoid it. I mean,
you mentioned in one of your graphics the idea of certification, and you've got all of the support from all of these international organizations. Is the certification process and the inspections and the guarantees Bulgarian, or are they connected to a network so that there's kind of a common global standard across Europe? Are you proposing a European certification approach, or is it very focused on the local conditions?
Unfortunately, I would say that as you know, there are two words in the European language which I resent. One of them is subsidiarity, and the other is adoption. The subsidiarity means that each national legislator has the authority to adapt the legislation to its own conditions, and that's used in a way that's not productive in my appreciation. That's why I'm saying convincingly that in our area, the national governments are the weak link in the whole multi-level governance process. They're not adapting the European legislation in a proactive way. They're trying to limit it to the minimal requirements and even go below them if they can. and thus they're blocking the grassroots initiative, and the certification, which is related to the calculation methodologies, obviously, is one, very clear examples. It is, yes, it is based on European standards, but it follows a national methodology and a national calculation software, which, for example, doesn't assume the role of thermal bridges, if you can imagine that.
Yeah.
So for an energy efficient building, the thermal bridges are, a huge part of the calculation. We don't have that in our national methodology, and it takes a lot of effort, a lot of, convincement to change that and to improve a certain instrument that has been already taken position in the process. So no, and on the other hand, yes, because as I said, the market has its own demands and its own dynamics, and international investors and people coming from abroad are looking for certification schemes. They're looking for LEED, they're looking for BREEAM, they're looking for Passive House, they're looking for other schemes. And then there are the banks. The banks has the pressure from the taxonomy, and they want to prove their savings. They want to prove that their projects are aligned with the taxonomy, and they don't trust the national certificates. The national certificates do not always acknowledge the post project conditions, the operational use of the buildings. So they're looking for other options, and they're looking also for options that are accessible in cost, because that's, adds up to the cost of the credit that they're giving. So certain certification methods that provide advanced functionalities and, more quality assurance mechanism are at the moment in process of being taken up by the financing institutions. And that dynamic I evaluate as positive. So in the past 2 or 3 years, we've been really in conversation with every major bank in Bulgaria on, issues, how to certify it. First it was new buildings, but now it has come to renovation of multifamily, of single-family buildings. So, there is an understanding of the volume of the market, and there is an understanding of the role that the financing sector plays in that direction. And I trust more on that kind of development rather than political push, top-down
Well,
approach to regulations.
It's good to have a note of optimism in there. That's good. I do have another question, but I don't want to steal any thunder from anybody. Would anybody who's on the call like to ask a question? I'll give how much influence, this is from Amy. She's my stalwart here in her coffee shop in Philadelphia. How much influence does ESG, the environmental and social governance, have on what you're doing?
Good question. By the way, very, very relevant question, because I am one of those that are not over enthusiastic, even though the potential is obvious. But again, that's a matter of quality assurance, because I'm afraid that ESG is the new CSR, the new corporate social responsibility. Some of you might remember 20 years ago, that was, the hype among big companies, and all of them were investing in CSRs and finding the way that it incentivized their market performance and has positive impact on their financial results. And at the end, it was, I would say, social washing. In many cases, not everywhere, but in many cases, and it's concentrated actually in different countries. It takes a different shape. With ESG, it's quite similar. In Bulgaria, I see a lot of greenwashing based on ESG calculations. So having vague methodologies, no streamlining, no quality assurance over the calculations of the emissions from the different processes, you'd see companies in the mining industry, processing industry, chemical industry, taking leading position as leaders in the green transition and saviors of the universe, which I honestly do not trust precisely. So we saw that now at COP 28. One of the highlights of the Bulgarian participation was the greening of the industry, but I have my doubts. So I advocate to be very, very careful regarding positioning of different actors within that new emerging paradigm of business development, because it has become a paradigm of business development. And again, it's for me the parallel with the passive house standard. The passive house standard provides your very nice and clear assessment of the building quality. We need something like that in the ESG sphere, so that we can avoid such unnecessary movements, if I can say so.
If I go too far down this path, when I watch your presentation, it's very focused on energy efficiency. But if I think in terms of the high performance buildings vernacular that we use, it's about energy efficiency, it's about carbon efficiency, it's about health, it's about air quality, it's about social justice, affordability, resilience, etc. How much do these broader objectives enter into one, your thinking, but also into the training that you offer to the folks who are doing buildings?
Absolutely, yes. So we have always confessed and actually pushed forward the concept that energy efficiency is just a part of the story. It's a very important foundational part of sustainability, but it's a part of sustainability issues. And that is why we relate it to other parameters that has to be followed to improve the built environment and the social environment. As the built environment is a part of our social development system. So what does that mean in practical terms? You need to get experts in energy efficiency. You need to have them. And we try to be positioned as the leading experts in energy efficiency. And we are trying also to act as corrective, as I said, to such not ungrounded, but with such concepts that are still lacking clear definitions. Then coming into the area, for example, of building certification, we absolutely agree that there is a potential of combining pure energy efficiency to other aspects. Actually, if you look at one of the concepts that is gaining pace around Europe, the green mortgage concepts that, for example, started in Romania, but now is quite viable also in Ireland, as far as I'm aware, through the Irish Green Building Council. It also comes in Italy, and many other countries are coming into that. Hungary, there is a good example with the Reading Bank. It combines actually 10 parameters that are supporting the overall sustainability of the built environment, including waste management, water management, everything that might come, or not everything, but many of the things that come as part. It also includes a whole life carbon analysis, and that's something which would become very important. And again, we started a university course on circular economy in construction just 2 years ago. So we are combining the stuff that we have access to, but we are still feeling that energy efficiency is the foundation. So if we use the established concept of energy efficiency to further develop more complex or broader environmental concepts into the built environment, that would be the right way to approach the situation. But again, if we focus on the impact, if we use the positive impact that we might have on transport, on waste management, on water management, and underscore energy efficiency, which is the case in some of the leading certification schemes around the world, we are not doing any good. So again, energy efficiency should be the basis of it.
Okay, good. Thank you very much. I'm running out of time because there's a lot of questions that are bubbling up. I will ask the one from Bob because that was next in line, but then I'm going to have to turn it over to Barbara Ann. His question is, how sensitive do you think the population in Bulgaria is to climate change as an issue? And do they see the connection to buildings in the built environment?
They're very, very aware on climate issues and environmental concerns until the moment that need to, dig deep in their pockets and invest some money. So when it comes to action, better leave it without me. And that's why we need a combination of arguments, to promote change. I don't know. I haven't shared with you probably that I'm not a building expert myself. I'm a journalist in education, communication specialist, and out of theoretical knowledge and out of experience, we know that we need a combination of arguments that can be shaped to each individual situation, and we need that communication to come from different independent sources so that we build trust and we avoid misinterpretations in any certain situation. So yes, climate change is recognized as an issue, but it's not sufficient to drive investment behavior. So we need the health argumentation, we need the financial argumentation, it's always an issue. We need the comfort argumentation, we need the lifestyle argumentation, we need the argumentation that, look, my neighbor did it and he lives in a better building than me. So it's a combination, and always the system approach to communication as to the building, you can make that parallel as well, is the winning approach.
Perfect answer. Thank you very much for that. That'll be our concluding remark, and I'll turn it over to Barbara Ann to wrap us up.
Thank you very much, Dragomir. That was absolutely wonderful. And to Scott for moderating the discussion, and to everyone who put questions into the chat to put, because it makes it so much more interesting when the questions are coming from everywhere. I did see from Amy that she's looking for us to create do a landscape analysis and develop a library. That's on our plans. Hopefully we will be able to do that. And for our members here, so at some point we need to start working on that. Just to remind everyone, our next BAC Learning webinar is on the second Wednesday in February, which happens to be Valentine's Day. So you won't forget, February 14th at 4 p.m. and Irish time. And in Cho, our architect friend Cho Shields and from Passive House for Everyone, and she presented, anyone who was in our summit in Escortia will remember the great, she made a great presentation there, so she'll present next month. And just to say to everyone, I'm going to also circulate a link to the registration form for our summit, which this year takes place in April, and hopefully we'll see you all there. And once again, wish you a happy new year, and thank you all very much for coming on today, and stay safe.
Thank you, Dragomir.
Thanks, Dragomir.
Thank you very much to
everybody.
everyone for the time and attention.
Take care.
Thank you. It was a pleasure.
Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.
Recording.